afternoon. It's an honor to be here. As was just said, I had the opportunity and the privilege to be at Harvard the last year and a half, where I could study and research and speak on the issues of human sex trafficking here in the United States and throughout the world. To say that it's a crime of shocking brutality and a gross violation of basic human rights is an understatement. Today I'll be addressing a topic that is especially close to my heart. I was an Air Force JAG, I was a prosecutor, I was a defense attorney, I was a professor at the Air Force Academy. My wife and I are proud parents of 2 sons, a daughter, and a son-in-law that are all graduates of the Air Force Academy. We're a military family. You know, the U.S. Department of Defense is very aware of its responsibility to eliminate sexual assault among its personnel and to ensure that its members do not engage in activities that support human trafficking. In 2014, they requested a RAND Institute to initiate an independent study to assess the sexual assault and sexual harassment within the military. The survey found that approximately 20,000 military members had experienced a sexual assault in the past year. That is unacceptable. The Combating Trafficking in Persons program, the CTIP program, is tasked with implementing DoD's policy of opposing prostitution and any related activities contributing to the phenomenon of trafficking in persons. CTIP has mandated general awareness web-based training. This is training my kids get. Those in the military. It's an annual thing that has to be done. And they're taught how to look and recognize for human trafficking so they can report it. Now, while the military should be applauded for recognizing they have a problem and for taking some steps to remedy it, there's much more that they can and must do. As you've already heard today, pornography is an evil that impacts all segments of our society, including the military, in a very big way. And we could spend days addressing that, but we don't have to. We know what's out there. We know what's happening every day. I'm totally in agreement with Nikosi's position that DoD should require annual training about the dangers of pornography. That's a must. That can be done. As well as random sweeps for pornography on personal computers as well as the office computers in our military establishments. But another action that it's already been highlighted a little bit today by other speakers that could be taken and should be taken would have an immediate impact. And that would be to place gentlemen's clubs, strip clubs, and when I say gentlemen's clubs, folks, there's no such thing. They don't exist. But to place them off limits for military personnel would have a direct impact. This would send a clear and resounding message that it's not going to be business as usual, that the military culture of boys will be boys has got to become a part of our past. Strip clubs provide the perfect learning environment for sexually toxic attitudes and behaviors. Leering and jeering and sexual touching and lap dancing are everyday occurrences in strip clubs throughout the world and right outside the gates of our bases. In VIP rooms and strip clubs throughout the world, prostitution and sexual acts and trafficking are the norm. Military members cannot, listen to this, cannot exploit and objectify women in one environment without it having an impact on every area of their lives, including their military service and their relationships with their sisters in arms. Additionally, strip clubs are well-known fronts for prostitution and trafficking. Karen Hughes, who spent 35 years with the Las Vegas Police Department, including 8 years as the head of their vice department, has a lifetime of experience dealing with the realities of these strip clubs. The owners of strip clubs understand they're in a dirty business. The men who come to these clubs don't come for the overpriced drinks. They come for the fantasy girl and the potential for a happy ending. No strip club anywhere in this country or the world survives without the possibility of those sex acts. They just don't. Strip club managers have to balance, and it's a delicate balance, between providing an environment that keeps predatory males from coming back and yet staying within the so-called legal limits. And don't kid yourselves, there aren't legal limits. Everything goes. Pimps become regular customers, and they bring in young girls, and they break down their inhibitions. And there's drugs that are involved to cover the terrible abuse these young ladies have every day. They pay off security guards and part of the management so that they can bring in their girls and recruit others. Occasionally, the management secretly will cooperate with the police and maybe give up a dirty pimp, maybe with a girl. That takes them off the watch list because they know the police will start looking at the other places. This is a big money business, and the balancing act is constant. In conclusion, Ms. Hughes stated that during her entire career of 30-some years, none of the strip clubs were clean. And she's also seen a troubling trend that prostitution is moving off the streets into the strip clubs. As pimps and members of organized crime understand, there's a protection being in strip clubs. The problem for law enforcement is the lack of resources and the time that it's required to run good sting operations. Every police department has a limited financial amount of assets, and they have to continue to train new officers that have the skills to get deep into the VIP rooms and the back rooms of these strip clubs. It takes large quantities of cash to get there, and our law enforcement don't have those resources. It's a crime that seems to have no end. The FBI has taken a lead role in fighting trafficking and has established task forces throughout the nation, partnering with local, state, and other federal law enforcement agencies. A warning sign of human trafficking they know is strip clubs. The FBI has stated that certain locations, such as truck stops, massage parlors, and strip clubs, often are used by traffickers to force victims into the sex trafficking world. An FBI task force in Portland, Oregon, a hotspot for human trafficking, found a huge overlap between strip clubs and the sex trade. That's a big surprise, right? We know that. Everybody knows that. One member of the task force stated, "It's no secret that pimps and traffickers will go to strip clubs to try to find girls to traffic and promote and to compel into prostitution." In another investigation of 4 strip clubs that was led by the FBI, the IRS, and local police, graphic court filings detailed how in the dimly lit VIP rooms, dancers and patrons engaged in open sex acts for money. And here's what drives me crazy. The one fact that is indisputable is that the close proximity of strip clubs to bases throughout the world. As an example, in Fort Bragg in Fayetteville, North Carolina, the Army's largest military base with 50,000 troops, it has a number of strip clubs right out the gate of Fort Bragg Street. Fayetteville, with a population of 200,000 people, has the dubious honor of being the 3rd-ranked city per capita of strip clubs in the entire nation. There are 15 strip clubs right in that small town. The naval base station at Norfolk, the largest Navy base in the Navy, and Langley Air Force Base are separated by 21 miles. The Marine base at Camp Lejeune in Jacksonville, North Carolina, a town of 60,000. A quick Google search finds 5 strip clubs in Jacksonville for that small town and 21 in the vicinity of Langley and the naval station in Norfolk. Military discounts are common because it's no secret who keeps those clubs open. The bottom line is that the sexual assault crisis is not occurring in a vacuum. Consumption of sexual performances and commercial sex acts at strip clubs by U.S. military personnel instill the very notions of sexual privilege and entitlement that lead to sexual assault and creates a culture that enables sex trafficking. The infamous juicy bars outside the gates of our bases in South Korea offer a perfect example of what can be done. A few years ago, there were 55 juicy bars outside the gates of Osan. That's where young women would stand outside and try to get our young servicemen to go in there and pay high prices for non-alcoholic drinks. But it was the start of the negotiation for sex acts. Prostitution and indentured servitude were so well known in those places, everybody knew it. The Air Force made an effort to put those juicy bars out of business. In 2013, by making them off limits, they reduced the number from 55 to 9. The whole tone outside the gate changed. Lieutenant General Jean-Marc Jouas said, "I've had many airmen that have come out and said, I just didn't ever want to go there. I didn't want to go outside the gate because it was so seedy." While Korea illustrates a regional success, it also highlights the weakness of DoD's CTIP policy as it's currently written. All our military bases have an Armed Forces Disciplinary Control Board, which is tasked with making establishments that present conditions which adversely affect the health, safety, morale, and morals to our military person off limits. Do you think strip clubs might affect the morals of our young men and women? Of course they do. In my lengthy interview with General Jouas, he made it abundantly clear that although he faced challenges within the military when he wanted to do this to the juicy bars, but he had a staff that was outstanding, that was willing to fight the good fight. And as he stated, it's absolutely critical that the military presents a consistent message to our troops currently, and we're currently just not doing that. He went on to add that making strip clubs off limits worldwide is a decision that would help change the culture of boys being boys. Now, why doesn't the disciplinary board work? Number one, it applies to businesses within a local area. Number two, procedural process time. You have to file paperwork. You have to get a notification. You have to have an appeal process. That takes time. It's designed to deal with just one type of business, not a class of businesses. And different commanders interpret the rules differently, creating different results. And finally, installation commanders, folks, they don't have the time to do this. Their responsibilities should not be involved here. Their job's to train our men and women to fight and win our wars. So the recommendations: amend DoD's CTIP policy to place strip clubs and sexually oriented business off limits to all military personnel worldwide. That can be done. 2, amend DOT's CTIP policy to require annual training about the dangers of pornography. And 3, amend DoD's CTIP policy to require random sweeps for pornography on computers, private and in the office. To conclude, our military is the most highly respected institution in our nation. Not anything is even close. And yet we've seen the scandals with the Marines photo sharing scandal that's hit the papers the last couple weeks, the Navy scandal with admirals having sex and getting paid money and prostitutes. It's the time for decisive action. We don't need any more studies to tell us what we already know. We know what's happening. So it's time for our military leaders to lead, to change the rules that they can do. It's within their ability to do that. And it's our job, if they don't, to hold their feet to the fire. Thank you very much.